Captain Nav again. Today on the Swissair 242 from Dubai to Muscat. Normally it's 3:30 flight, I believe, but today we're gonna do it on the 777-300ER. We'll go for the PF events.
Hello, Captain. How are you today?
I'm great. So it seems to have picked up the voice, which is good. And then we go to -40.
I'm out for the walk around.
And he's gonna go for the walk around. He's muted, so that's good. In the meantime, we'll get cracking. So the ADIRU will come on. The emergency lights we can arm now. And we'll actually, the checklist reset, I think he's going to do himself, and the manager, actually, we can't do anything about it on this one, so I'll leave it like this. Right, we'll start with the FMC. So as you can see, it's the newest database from yesterday with Navigraph. That's the only way really to get it. It's through Navigraph. I'm not aware of any other providers, so yeah, that's the way it is. It's a little bit for those of you who are interested in updating the database in the FMS there, or the FMC. It's a bit of a subscription to kind of take on, so it's not too bad, but it's obviously adding up a little bit. So the ident page to start with, the model is correct. Engine rating, that's the G19 with 115,000 pounds of thrust, that's all correct. The Iraq data, the cycle at the moment is 1913. That's good, and you can see the dates are correct. The drag and fuel flow, as I've said before, is for the cruise degradation, and that's more like a function of well, it's more something that the airline will try to work out. The performance department will try to work out to see if maybe there's a few bumps in the aircraft, and the fuel flow and the fuel consumption is not exactly as per the manual. So that's traffic. Oh, thank you very much, Swedish Sim Pilot. Thank you, I appreciate it. So yeah, we'll at this stage here we totally disregard that. So the POSINIT, as you might well know, will enter the reference airport, which is Dubai today. On that Dubai to Muscat continuation of the flight from Zurich on the Swissair 242, and then for the set initial position, you can see you've got the boxes which kind of prompt you to enter something there. You'll put the take the GPS position and set it, and the boxes there, and the R5 key, and then the initial position is set. And once you set the initial position, then you can see you've got the artificial horizon now on the PFD, which kind of takes shape, and also the navigation display is all set up properly. Then we go on the route and simulate the request of the route by data link. Hey, Crooner 777, good morning. Request the route there, so simulate the data link system to upload the route. So I'll go through my list of routes there and pick up this one and send the request. So on the real aircraft, it's just a route request prompt as we had initially. Just pressed on the key there, the L3 key, and then the request for the data link is sent that way. You don't get to choose a list of routes like I did in the simulation here. The system is linked to the dispatch center, and the dispatch will send the correct flight plan to the correct aircraft. Obviously you've got to check, but normally I've never seen like the wrong flight plan being sent to the aircraft in all this time, so yeah, normally it's good. And then yeah, you'll just load the flight plan. You'll get the message. That's very accurate there. route 1 uplink loading. Normally you would also have the flight number, which would uplink, but here it doesn't. So we're gonna add up the flight number itself. So it's the Swiss 242, and that's pretty much it. Then the perf init would also upload. But before we get to it, we'll check the route is correct in relation to on your way to San Diego, I believe, from San Francisco. Very nice. So Anvik Lima 223 to Tardy and November 629 to Musuk, so that's correct. We can activate and execute. Then if we go to the perf init, initially I'll reject that because what the uplink for the perf init would give us is the reserve fuel, the cruise altitude, which is on the flight plan, the cost index, which is also on the flight plan. But here, because it's kind of default, then it's giving us the wrong values. So let me find the flight plan. For the reserve, it's 6.4 and 3.4. Actually, it's 6.5 and 3.5, so that's 10 tons of reserve. If I can do the maths, let me move this bad boy here. 10 tons of reserve. Yeah, and the zero fuel weight prompt actually remains empty during the uplink process. Yeah, so then the cruise level is 190. The cost index on the flight plan we put 120, and the cost index, if you remember on the PMDG 777, it will maybe give you a higher speed, but as far as the fuel consumption is concerned, if you do the flight plan with PFPX, is not gonna work out very well. No, I do the flight plan Chrono 777. I do the flight plan with PFPX. I updated it to version 2 point something, so it's a little improvement on PFPX, and yeah, it's actually I quite like it. But as I said, like the cost index calculation for the fuel burn doesn't really work out very well, because I remember like once doing a flight plan with a high cost index, and then arriving at the other side with too much fuel. So yeah, I didn't calculate it very well. But that's maybe also due to the simulation. So anyway, thrust limit at this stage we'll leave it, and then the takeoff page will go to the next page and set the acceleration height, which is basically once we're gonna start after the takeoff, start accelerating to retract the flaps, and then the thrust reduction altitude, where the thrust goes back to from the takeoff thrust. It gets to the climb thrust, which is usually a little bit less, unless the takeoff was with a light aircraft, and then there's no much difference between the takeoff thrust and the climb thrust. But usually, if you are relatively heavy, obviously you'll have more thrust on the takeoff than on the climb. So that's the altitude at which it will reduce. I think FS2Crew actually says something like climb, or just to, which is not really a call out we usually do, but FS2Crew says climb to kind of notify that the thrust is down to the climb. Right, for me that'll be then we'll go to the departures. We'll go 30 right is the Anvik 6 Foxtrot. And if we go back to the route page, we can see all the boxes are populated, and Anvik 6 Foxtrot as well. Then for the departure, we'll check all the waypoints. All looks correct to me there. I'm not gonna worry too much about that today. The route data will load the winds which were uplinked. earlier on. So at each position, if we look at it, we've got a sample of levels with the winds taken from active sky. So I'll execute that and then load them onto the descent forecast page as well. And the red page, we just leave it as is. The progress page, just double check the distance. So 214, that looks correct to me, I believe. Let me quickly double check. Make sure there's nothing. Where's the flight plan? Yeah, 215, so that's correct. It's actually quite accurate. We do a route copy onto route 2 and go back to route 1. Check there's no outstanding uplinks, which is not the case. Fixed page, if you want, you can set the MSA there based on the airport or navigation aid, whatever is at the airport, and that's it for the moment.
Hi guys, can we start boarding now?
Yes. That at minus 19 he starts his pre-flight flow. I still have the kind of cheat sheet I had made like many moons ago. No problem, NAFP, no problem. So he's gonna do his pre-flight flow at the moment, which kind of sets up the overhead panel, which is most of the time in most airlines the responsibility of the first officer, which basically depends the state the overhead panel is left on, but most of the time it's just to maybe make sure the packs, as he's doing at the moment, come back on. I'm gonna start the APU myself because it's more like it's not really taken into account here in FS2Crew. And then he's gonna set his side of the MCP with the flight directors on. He's gonna set the auto brake, and then I kind of set the panel there is convenience as well with maybe yeah. It resets the checklist as well. So the checklist, if you remember, for me didn't used to work very well, so now I kind of worked out and how to set it so that FS2Crew can do the checklist and tick the boxes itself. So it seems to be working quite well that way, as long as that don't interfere with the display. So. Oops, that's wrong button. Alright.
Ready for the checklist?
Not quite yet. Let's bring FS2Crew back, because I need to brief him. Not that I'm gonna actually play the tape, but brief him here. So transponder, we need it. Takeoff thrust is gonna be reduced. The config at this rate, I believe, is gonna be 5. Paxton, anti-ice, NADP gonna be 1. Thrust reduction is 1500. Accelerating at 3000. We're gonna fly a SID, and concerns are none. So the briefing is done. You could play the brief here. You could play the tape. I'm gonna spare you the torture there. Yeah, let's try to do the checklist then. Pre-flight checklist.
Pre-flight checklist. Oxygen.
Tested 100%.
Tested 100%. Flight instruments.
Heading 120. Altimeter 1016.
Heading 120. Altimeter 1016. Pre-flight checklist complete.
Here's the load sheet for you. Have a nice trip.
Thank you. So if you do remember, I've mentioned that before. Mind you, it's been more than 2 years I've not been on this thing, so there's no actual, in 98% of cases, there's no really a paper load sheet as per se. The load sheet comes up on the data link, and then is displayed down here on the lower MFD there, where you would have all the information concerning the load. So here I kind of mentions the load sheet, but it's not really happening in the real life, not anymore. Not on these aircraft where you've got like the full data link capability. Anyway, we're gonna have quickly a look at the loading of the aircraft. The zero fuel weight is supposed to be 234, so I'll set that in 234. We've got 16.8 tons of fuel, and the takeoff weight should be 250.8, and we had 249.9 planned minus the taxi fuel. It kind of makes sense. At this stage I don't have the Boeing performance tool just with me, but I assume that the assumed temperature is around 75-76 degrees, so I'm gonna set that up. These lightweights, you don't need a lot of thrust for takeoff, so I'll just eyeball it for today. Then the engine acceleration height, it's actually, as far as I'm concerned, 1000 feet standard, and acceleration height is 3000, and thrust reduction 1500, as we said. Flaps on this long runway 5 is good, lightweight as well. The CG will take it directly from PMDG. It's actually quite at the back today, so the trim needs to be a bit forward, and then we'll just take the speeds as they are here, which usually are quite accurate here in the simulation. If you do get the flap setting and the assume, then the speeds given by PMDG are quite accurate. Yesterday I had done the calculation with the Boeing OPT, and the speeds were actually the V1 and the rotate were accurate, and the V2 was within 1 knot, so that's good. V2 so is 165. Well, LNAV, VNAV, we got a track and the altitude, so it's good. Right, the APU is running, so we'll disconnect the primary external power. And let me call the ground guy. Hello, ground? A ground flight deck.
Go ahead.
Please disconnect the ground equipment.
Roger.
Hi, Captain. The cabin is ready to go.
Thanks.
If you need anything, just let me know.
Before start procedure.
Are we clear to pressurize?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so at this stage we'll ask then the ground guy confirm that all the checks are complete and we are clear to pressurize. I don't think you can do it with FS2Crew, so we'll just assume it's been done. And the trim was 3 units, which...
I'm ready for the checklist.
Pre-flight checklist. Before start checklist.
Before start checklist. Flight deck door. Closed and locked. MCP.
V2.165, heading 299, altitude 4000. V2.165, track 299, altitude 4000.
Takeoff speeds.
V1.160, VR163, V2.165. Checked and set. Checked and set. Set and checked.
CDU pre-flight.
Completed.
Completed. Trim.
Set and checked.
Taxi and takeoff briefing.
Completed.
Before start checklist complete.
So as you can see, I had to kind of use the kind of neutral response to the challenge on some of the items, because otherwise the voice recognition doesn't pick up very well. So I used to, but I don't want to repeat myself 50 times, so I'll just do it like that. Right, so we'll request push back and departure. So the nose is gonna go left and start before push back no. So it just cancel the ICAS there. So the bridge was not attached, so that's good. The doors are closed. Back in exit.
Hello, Captain. We're ready for pushback.
Yeah, they also updated the voices there on GSX. So slightly different, and the sequence is also a little bit different. They ask you to confirm a good engine start, which was not the case before. So.
Locking gear.
I hope everybody's doing well, getting ready for the weekend.
Bypass pin inserted. Release parking brakes. Commencing push. All engines clear. Start at will.
Start sequence is 1, then 2.
Check.
Start the left engine.
Starting left.
So it's gonna turn on the start switch there on the left, and then I have to
Oil
bring
pressure.
the fuel with the fuel control switch to run. Yeah, run is the correct term here. Not starting to talk nonsense. But yeah, the N2 increases, the oil pressure increases, the N1 increases, and usually once you get around 32-33% N2, then the fuel is brought in by the auto start system, and then the rest follows suit. So the N2 will always lead the EGT, which will lead the N1. If one of the parameters doesn't follow the normal sequence, then the start is not going to be good. But because it's an auto start system, then if the system actually detects like a bad start, then it would kind of cut it off itself. Oh, that's a long trip you have planned there. That's really good.
Are you sure?
Start the right engine.
Starting right.
And same thing for the number 2 engine.
Oil pressure.
The fuel control to run. after he sets it to start at the top there. The N2 comes in, oil pressure, N1, and then by about 32-33%, then the fuel starts kicking in.
Waiting your confirmation for good engine start.
Okay, well, as you say, as I said to you, like it says waiting for confirmation of good engine start, but we need to wait for the second engine to start, and then check the recall and everything to make sure that there's no problem with the aircraft. Alright, so the good engine start. How does he want me to do it? Oh yeah, you're supposed to call for the flaps. But first confirm with this guy. So confirm good engine start. Well, mainly check the recall, yeah, okay. You can disconnect, okay, and then with GSX to get him to do the flow, the prompt is flaps 5.
Flaps 5.
That's his prompt. I think he switches off the APU. Supposed to check the anti-ice, check the recall as well, set the flaps, which is done,
Tow truck disconnected.
and then he displays the flight control page, which in the aircraft we don't really do, and he doesn't have to do it, but and check the flight controls. The control column here doesn't move in the simulator because I reduced it, but you can see on the flight control that the controls are actually moving on the flight control page, so we are all good. So far so good. Before taxi checklist.
Before taxi checklist. Anti-ice. Auto. Recall. Checked. Flight controls.
Checked.
Ground equipment.
Clear.
Before taxi checklist. Complete.
Clear left.
Clear right.
So that's the prompt for him to basically set the taxi lights to start the taxiing. That's pretty much it, really. So you could say, like, those of you who fly and or who are kind of yeah, even I guess PPL, when you fly with an instructor, you kind of go clear left, clear right, because you kind of fly with two guys. So this is the kind of prompt that you could use in real, but here it kind of helps FS2Crew to kind of get the flows going. It's ridiculous here. I mean, you put 27% of thrust and the aircraft hardly moves. This lightweight with no thrust, in real the aircraft would just, you know, want to roll away like crazy. So yeah, I think there's too much resistance of the ground here in the simulation, but so much we can do, I guess. So yeah, you have got to taxi with thrust in the rear aircraft once again. This lightweight, you will taxi with no thrust at all. Obviously, if you go on a long flight and you've got 100 tons plus of fuel, then sometimes it needs a little bit of a push to get going, but not
The cabin's ready.
But not at lightweight. So if the cabin is ready,
Cabin crew, take your seats.
Weather radar. Put it on weather. There's turbulence here. Before takeoff checklist.
Before takeoff checklist. Before takeoff checklist complete.
Checklist complete. You have to confirm that. You have to confirm both the before takeoff checklist and the landing checklist The pilot flying confirms the checklist is complete. These are the two checklists that the pilot flying has to confirm. The others you don't really have to say that, or to yeah, you don't have to confirm that and say it out loud. You just check it out once the colleague has done it. But both the before takeoff checklist and the landing checklist, you've got to verbally confirm that the checklist is complete. Okay, I didn't try the NGX U. I mean, it does look good. I'm not sure the update they've done on it. I wish they had done an update on the 777. But yeah. Right, so far so good. I'm still following the sequence there, which is a little bit different from what I'm doing in real. Although there's a lot of similarities, because at the end of the day it's all kind of Boeing procedures. But yeah, I've got to kind of follow the cheat sheet, the cheat sheet, as they say, for me to kind of follow the sequence of FS2Crew. But then once we're flying, it's pretty much as is done in real, really. So I'm not connected to any network, so there's no really any ground traffic or anything. So that's why I'm kind of taxiing without really looking where I'm going. Or yeah, that would be good if they can get an update on the 777. Otherwise, maybe they're waiting for you know, the 777X to kind of fly, and then kind of do a version of it. But yeah, the 777X, I don't know if you've seen on the Twitter page, you know, the link I sent. They didn't look very good when they did, like back in September, I think it was, when they did the test, the extreme load test. The aircraft, basically the structure failed before reaching the 1.5. I think it failed at 1.48, which is obviously still extreme conditions, which in real wouldn't really happen. But the kind of classic 777, the 300ER, for example, failed at 1.54, and the 787 failed. Well, it didn't fail actually. They stopped the test at 1.5 once they had passed. So the new 777X failing at 1.48 doesn't feel so great, you know. Doesn't feel great, above all when you see the issues they had with the Max. It's not inspiring confidence, but I believe they don't have to redo the test. The FAA will certify the aircraft as long as Boeing can demonstrate that they've done the reinforcement, and that the computer models are like kind of backing up, you know, their theory. So anyway, we'll see. Before entry procedure. Runway entry procedure.
Check. Clear on the approach.
It is.
Approaching 30 right.
The taxiing as well, but the joystick is not very easy because you don't have a tiller. So I'm actually probably moving the rudder there. So with the tiller, it's got better like radius of turn. But with the rudder, it's not easy.
On runway 30 right.
Alright, I'll stop talking a little bit, kind of reactivate FS2Crew. Takeoff.
Check.
Thrust ref.
Check. Thrust set. $80 knots.
Hold.
Check.
V1. Rotate.
Rotate. Positive climb.
Gear up.
Gear up. $400 feet.
Thrust ref, enough speed.
Check.
Lovely, and the fire truck crossing the runway as we take off. That's a scenery thing. I mean, I was not going to abort the takeoff for that, but yeah, lovely. That's yeah, that's in the scenery. I guess there's nothing we can do. I was happy to continue the takeoff, but if something like that was happening in real, I guess you'll have to abort the takeoff just in case. So here we are. I'll put the autopilot in. I quite like to hand fly, but it kind of gives me a bit of spare capacity. I believe that's the Queen Mary 2 or something like that, sitting in the some sort of harbor there. Flaps 1.
Speed checked. Flaps 1.
The tracking as well here is not fantastic, you know, it's kind of overshooting the turn there. It's a little bit to the right of track, as you can see there, and then it's gonna turn right a little bit to kind of recapture the track, and then as we're getting close to the turn, obviously it's gonna have to turn again. Yeah, it's not fantastic, but what to do? So we'll keep the speed limit. And then it's gonna accelerate and we retract the last stage of flaps. Yeah, the taxiing, and as I said, I think they were calling about friction. They were like talking about friction. The ground friction is too much in the simulation, so yeah, I think it's a problem. Flaps up.
Speed checked. Flaps up.
After takeoff checklist.
After takeoff checklist. After takeoff checklist complete.
So you can see as well the checklist obviously is normally sequenced. So when you open the checklist, the checklist was at the correct page after takeoff checklist. But then the FS2Crew kind of gets into the checklist menu item, or all the list of checklists, and then goes into the after checklist and reopens the page which was already opened. So it's a little bit kind of I guess it's just to make sure that it's doing the checklist, or the correct checklist, but actually the checklist is sequenced throughout the flight. So you know, it's the correct checklist that was opened.
10,000 feet.
if that makes sense. 10,000 feet, then it switches off all the landing and runway and taxi lights, and the strobe obviously stays on, and we'll release the passengers as well. Seatbelt sign auto.
Seatbelt signs auto.
So I believe there's still a 250 restriction there, so we're gonna cancel that one and the departure. That's it. So by pressing altitude intervention, you can delete the restrictions which are in the FMC on the departure, in particular. If there's any altitude or speed restriction, the first push will of the altitude intervention button up there will delete the first restriction appearing on the legs page, which is good to do actually. Transition altitude standard set.
Standard set.
Yeah, he's done it on his side, so that's good. Well, that's it, accelerating to 320 knots and climbing to 190. It's a short hop, so no need to climb very far. Chat. I feel like the frames are maybe a little bit slowed down, a little bit struggling, but yeah. Yeah, you can definitely press the altitude intervention button, at least on the 777, but I think also on the 737, if I do remember. It's been a while. Obviously, on the real aircraft, I think you can press the button and it gets rid of the first restriction on the legs page. So be it like speed or altitude restriction. And it kind of saves you having to
1,000 feet to level off.
To dive into the FMC and go heads down. You can just press the button on the MCP and it kind of gets rid of the restriction, which is good. As I said, it kind of saves you like going heads down. No problem. I'm glad to see you all as well. Have a good flight going down to Italy. It's actually going to Italy. I was talking about like I was kind of thinking on the way back up, but it's actually you're going down, huh? So going from Belgium to Italy. Yeah. So I was talking about like, you know, the Mediterranean and then going back via Lyon. It's actually the other way around. It's to go down like via Lyon and then along maybe towards like Nice and then along the coast there. Well, I enjoy the flight. That's real flying actually. Yeah, enjoy, man.